Leadership is hard, and I've got some good news and I've got some bad news for you. The bad news is that I can't make it any easier, but the good news is that we can work on it together to get better. And you want to know the secret? Who you are comes before what you do. It's form before function. So let's get to work together. I'm Preston Poore, and this is PQ. Today on PQ, we have a guest who's passionate about helping people discover their true purpose. Joe Colavito is a coach, a speaker, and an author whose journey has been dedicated to empowering others to find deeper meaning in their work and personal lives. And through his Life Purpose Scan tool and his book, Purpose, More Than a Side Hustle, Joe has inspired countless individuals to align their careers with their calling. I'm excited to dive into his insights on leadership, faith, and personal growth. Joe, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today. Excited about the opportunity. Let's just jump right into this. I love to talk about origin stories and tipping points, where people started. How did you discover your purpose, and what was the moment that made you decide to help others find theirs?
Yeah, they're actually about 10 years apart, but how I discovered mine was I just felt out of alignment, just uncomfortable in my career, just felt like there was something else I should be doing. And I had a bold prayer one day, and that was, God, I've chosen all my jobs up until now. You choose the next one, and I will take it with no questions. The challenge was that was a 50% pay cut.
Wow.
The benefit was the second week I was there, they put me through a life purpose training class.
Okay.
Identity, purpose, values, the whole day, self-assessment, who am I? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And that changed my life.
Wow. Pivotal moment for you. So what came out of that then? That second week, that test, everything you went through, what was illuminating to you?
It's pretty sad to say it, but I'll be transparent with you since we're here.
Yeah.
I realized the world wasn't actually about me, and that purpose was an other-centered activity.
Okay.
So I was actually here to try to make life better for others instead of everyone else trying to make my life better.
Yeah. So did you get a test score or something came out and said, I've got this all wrong. What do I do now? Kind of thing?
There was so many good exercises and so much good conversation, people being transparent in there. Okay. I just started realizing I was still very self-centered and that I needed to change, and that it appeared based on what they were saying that the more I focused on doing things for you and for Devin, the better my life would get.
What does a self-centered life look like in your mind?
I could put my glasses back on and show you, but it was a 3C lens.
Okay.
So I was always comparing, competing, and criticizing.
Wow. Comparing, competing and criticizing. Okay. Tell me more.
The second book I wrote is called The Inside Track.
Okay.
And it's a novel, but the character is me. And it's me walking through the 191 lobby, which is very large, trying to get to an elevator to close the doors before anyone else gets in there with me, so that I can check my tie and check my shoes and make sure I'm all, smile, make sure I'm looking good before I step off. So it's all about other people's approval, how I come across, how I look, right? What I get done.
Yeah. Do you see that as pervasive in today's marketplace?
I see it as sad, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's been passed on from generation to generation, right? I mean, you got to get yours. You got to defend yourself. You got to protect yourself. You got to get here. And it's a depleting life. I ended up really, really empty in late 1999, and Scott Kaufman basically helped me get turned around.
And who was Scott?
Scott was a coworker when I was in executive search, and he just asked me one day, how's your life going? How's your marriage? How are you feeling about being a parent?
Yeah.
It's like, are you trying to depress me in my driveway?
Yeah. Don't drag this out of me right now. Yeah, that's tough. So as you move into this experience, because you probably had to go through some type of desert yourself, right, as you did that. Tell me a little bit about that journey, because you have this realization. I know things don't just turn on like a light bulb and just everything is better, and now you're helping other people. What got you to a point where, okay, I recognize this now, I'm self-aware of it, I've had this revelation about myself that it's not focused on the right things. Tell me about the journey that you went through to move from where you were, there was a gap there, right, to where you are now, or at least where you decided that you want to help other people.
Yeah. So just going back again to 1999, when I used to drive into our country club home in St. Ives, from the outside, it looked like there were bars on the windows and bars on the door. And it'd be like, I'd be pulling into the driveway going, how did I end up here? I don't ever remember with, the humble beginning of my mom being a 5th grade teacher, my dad being a principal. I don't ever remember saying, I want to make a bunch of money, play a bunch of golf, and have a bad marriage. Like I don't remember setting that up, but being so self-centered led me there. And so now I was trying to figure out how to get out of that. So when I prayed, just give me the next job, the 50% pay cut was the beginning of not being able to maintain that lifestyle. So the way I describe it to people is everyone else thought I was living the good life.
Yeah.
And I was asking myself, if this is the good life, why doesn't it feel so good?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great
And
question.
so that's when I started going through the wilderness, and, then I ended up at Wells and went through the life purpose and suddenly realized, oh my gosh, I was made to be a teacher and a coach and an encourager. But you have to be focused on other people to do all of those things. That's who I wanted to be when I left high school. But my dad said I wouldn't make enough money. My marketing professor told me that marketing and psychology, I wouldn't get a job. And suddenly I'm on this track that I never really wanted to be on.
Yeah, isn't that sad? Just to go down a rabbit trail real quick, we listen to all these voices in our lives that don't affirm our talents, skills, abilities, the way we're made, our DNA, the way we're knit, bent, if you will, too. And so we hear those voices, and then we go down this path of like futility almost, and you get there and you're like, well, this isn't exactly where I want to be. How do you get people upstream from that, right? Because there's this spiral. I think it's so common that people get into something maybe that they think is going to be fulfilling. It's not. How do we take them upstream and figure out and help people earlier on to think about that?
Yeah, one of the amazing exercises that I went through when I joined Wells was you just do a lifeline. You go back to your earliest childhood memory, and you start looking at the things that you enjoyed, the types of TV shows, the types of games, the types of friends, the activities, right? And you start looking for what are the things that were above the line that really motivated me, inspired me, encouraged me. What were things that were below the line, the trials and the crises and the very difficult times? And when you plot all those out and you get real with yourself, there is a pattern. And so the pattern was, I set out to be a teacher and would have loved to have been a teacher in a high school and a coach of something.
Yeah.
And I ended up over here as an accountant doing executive search. Like, how did that happen?
Right, right.
And the challenge is you can go back to get upstream, but then you have to make all the difficult decisions as to whether or not you're willing to commit to that new path. That's the hard part.
Yeah, that's hard. And then also, is there truth to the fact that if you don't realize that until later on in life, for somebody, that all things are used for the good, right, and for God's glory? And so how do you take into account, because I've had people say that to me before, Joe, that, I sit back and wish, okay, maybe if I didn't spend 20 plus years at Coke, I could have started my career doing what I'm doing now much earlier. And then they say, well, Press, you probably would not have ever gone through all that you went through that you can share with other people. So there's kind of a little tension there, isn't there? A balance between the two?
There is, and a little play on words that I think you'll appreciate, right? Every trial, T-R-I-A-L, is a trail,
okay,
T-R-A-I-L.
Right.
And so when you look back and you do that exercise, you'll be like, oh, this was all leading up to, this is what greatly disturbs me. This is what breaks my heart. Like, that's part of this equation. I'm just going to be happy and only do the good things. That's part of the equation, but there's another side of the coin. Like, what is it that really motivates me to help other people? Like, why do I want to do what I do?
Yeah, and that's awesome. I love just changing 2 letters, right? Trial to trail. Trial to trail. So if you, hopefully the listeners heard that. That's good. Thank you for indulging me on some of those questions that as we go through our conversation here. What led you to create this life purpose scan? I guess maybe first explain it, and then the why behind it, and then how it helps people.
Yeah, well, thank you. The life purpose scan is basically designed as the only assessment out there that can help people understand how their self-talk is affecting them.
Okay.
Is your self-talk working for you, or is your self-talk working against you? And so we have a series of 22 foundational elements. They roll up into 5 leading indicators. And basically, by the time you go through a guided discovery session, which is a little bit like what you and I are doing right now, where you just partner in curiosity with someone and ask them questions so they can kind of process for themselves. But what led me to it is pretty devastating. I was living up in the Johns Creek area, and we had 5 beautiful, talented, amazing young people take their lives. And that was from 2007, where my wife's, one of her best friends, just brilliant sons, about to be state champ wrestler. I mean, not the profile you would think would want to end their life. So we lost him. And then we lost 3 others just in the sphere of influence of Johns Creek High School and Northview High School. And then the 5th one was really painful. It was a young girl that I coached at Kings Ridge. She had bad spina bifida, bad back pain, could no longer play sports. The Lowry, who I introduced you to, asked me, do you think you could help her? I said, I don't know, but I would try. Sure. And so I took her through a series of assessments, helped her to see how cool she was, helped her to get into a college. I don't want to name the name just to keep privacy. And my daughter was going to the same college. My daughter was a sophomore and she was a freshman. And they had a lockdown because they'd heard a gunshot, and it was her.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And that was 2011. I'm a dad. I don't have a psychiatry or psychological background. Like, I can't do anything about it. I wish I could. And then in 2015, our daughter tried to take her life.
Okay.
And that's when it got serious.
Yeah.
But again, I'm paying attention. If you want me to do something, show me what it is. Yeah. And it wasn't until 2022 that I got the vision for the Life Purpose Scan. So sometimes you're in it for a long time before it even makes sense.
Yeah. And so this self-talk then, I guess, is what it's pointing to, is to help somebody evaluate that and help them walk through there. Tell us about the battle for the mind. It's so important, right? Our self-talk. So what role does all that play?
I recently heard some stats that are scary. The average person has 70,000 thoughts per day. 85% of those are negative, and 95% are repetitive. So, it doesn't seem possible to me because of where my mind is, but I realize that we do end up with our minds being transformed. So where was my mind when I was self-centered Joe? Probably doing a lot of that. I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose that. If I don't do that, I'm going to have to cut a corner here. I need to, right? And so those weren't really productive and healthy.
Right.
So I think well-being is a reflection of self-talk. And the clearer and the more healthy and the more productive your self-talk, the higher your well-being, the better your relationships, the less likely you are to live under the influence. And I'll just explain, like, everyone's petrified of, oh my gosh, people are driving under the influence. I'm much more worried about them living under the influence of the people around them, the environments, the culture, right? All these things that are distracting them from who they actually were born to be.
It's funny. So your statistics are a little bit worse, if you will, than what I talk about. I've used the fact that 7 out of 10 thoughts that we have daily are negative, right? So the question is, how do you change those thoughts? And I'm not a advocate of the power of positive thinking, but there is a inner critic, and the question is, how do you change it into your inner champion? If you change one thought out of those 10, from 7 out of 10 to 6 out of 10, maybe make 4 of those positive thoughts, how does somebody go about that?
I love that. Like, so from inner critic to inner champion, is that how you said it? Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you. I'll write about that someday.
You probably have.
Maybe we could write about it, right?
Yeah,
so
maybe. Yeah. It's like golf, right? If you've ever played golf, if I sit,
I don't play anymore because of my inner critic.
So right there, you go. But if I sit on the tee and say, "Don't hit the ball in the water," where's the ball going?
It always goes in the water
every time.
Yep.
Okay. So I think it's, what do we fix our thoughts on? And so that's the beauty of purpose. Purpose becomes your GPS. So if my goal is to connect other people, right, with ways to experience life's full capacity, which is my purpose, then I don't have time to think about me. It's like, what can I do to help Preston in this moment? Like, what question could I ask him that might draw him closer to understanding who he is, right? And so I think it's literally, I'm going to hit the ball in the middle of the fairway. I'm going to live out my purpose in every moment. And so that's why I think purpose is such a centering and powerful
it's
thing.
that navigation, right, that will help us, that compass that points us in a certain direction. Although I will tell you that I have thought that I'm going to hit it in the fairway and still doesn't work. So that's the way.
Well, that's a skill issue.
Oh, yeah. That's what it is, right? No, but I totally get your point. And this is a training hack. I don't know if you've done this before or not. I learned this with Dale Carnegie a long, long time ago. And so if you see me in a workshop, you might see me do this. But I have the biggest guy stand up in the room. I mean, the strongest, biggest guy. And I say, you don't believe me about our negative thoughts? I'm going to show you real quick. And I have the guy tell himself out loud that I am a weak and unworthy person 10 times in a row. Before I have him do that, I have him stick his arm out And I have him, before he does the saying that 10 times, I have him stick his arm out, and I push down as hard as I can. Can't move it. But when he goes through that thing and says to himself and out loud to people, I'm a weak and unworthy person, and I go, okay, stick your arm back up. Guess what? Goes down.
Really?
And then I'll get him to say, okay, now let's help him as a group and tell him that he is he's a strong and worthy person. And so he'll say it out loud with vigor, and then the crowd's with him and everything else. And it's amazing. His arm won't move. And that's similar in terms of that self-talk that we have. When you say that I'm weak and unworthy, it weakens us. But if I also have this thought process that I'm strong, confident, and worthy, and I have a crowd that believes in me as well, the people around me, that helps lift them up as well. So a little bit different approach, but that's something to demonstrate to people that it is real, right, when you're in front of a group about your thought process and the way that we think.
And just real quickly to build on that, one of the foundational elements we measure is mattering. Right? Yeah. So we measure future 4 ways, right? Clarity, courage, confidence, and mattering. So I could have clarity, I could have courage, and I could have a sense of confidence. But if I don't think what I'm doing matters, my arm's going to drop.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
If I don't see the bigger picture of why I'm putting this effort in.
Yeah. That's so good. I love it. So I've got so many acronyms. We'll have to put these in the show notes. The CCCM, the trial and the trail. All good stuff. I think, Joe, and I know you look at the statistics probably like I do, loneliness is an I can't say it. We're going to go back. Fun. You having fun?
I'm having
You're doing
fun.
Great. Good. Yeah.
I'm having fun.
It's good.
It's just a normal conversation.
Yeah, that's all. Well, you know what I was taught is that when the most successful podcasts are like being a companion to somebody. You're just listening in on a conversation. And so you're doing a wonderful job. So thank you for that.
That's where we're talking about the partnering and curiosity, right?
Yeah.
You're just trying to help the other person.
That's
think.
right. That's exactly right. So it's really good. So let's talk real quick about loneliness. I know, Joe, you probably see the same statistics I do about the epidemic, if you will, around loneliness and well-being. What role is that playing? And people seem to have a hard time discovering purpose. People sometimes don't even hear about the word or understand it. I think there's a group of people that are talking about purpose, but there's a whole other group of people that don't even hear it. You know what I mean? So I'd love to have a statistic someday or a survey. Have you ever had anybody mention purpose to you? Have you ever discovered it or things like that? And the reason I'm going to go down a rabbit trail was kind of a conversation with a gentleman last week. He had retired. He said all of his retired friends are like, I played all the golf that I can possibly play. I've got my routine down. What does all this matter? Is there meaning and purpose this? And it's kind of like, wow, either they had purpose and meaning early, but then they had forgotten to rediscover that in retirement, or they never have somebody talk to them about it. But I just think there's this huge opportunity for us to get the word out, talking about purpose and where to find that purpose. But what are your thoughts? Why do people have such a hard time finding their purpose?
Yeah, there's a lot baked into what you just asked.
Sure.
But starting with the isolation, so let's just go to the retired person.
Yeah.
Now I retire. I don't have 17 direct reports. I don't have people I'm walking by in the hallway every day. And even the virtual move has impacted that to some degree,
Sure.
right? And now I'm on my own with my thoughts. Mm-hmm. So let's go to both camps, mm-hmm. right? I'm on my own with my thoughts, and I've never known purpose. I didn't know you could have one. I wouldn't know how to define it. I definitely couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm based on hobbies. I golf, I travel, I play bridge, mm-hmm. and you can only do so much, and then the mind is numb. Right. Let's go to the person who has purpose. They don't really see a shift between I had this title and this job and this paycheck, and now I'm off and I'm spending the same amount of time in nonprofits and on advisory boards and mentoring young people. And right?
Yeah, right.
They don't really even see a skip in it.
Sure.
But what I think is keeping people from finding it is that we've actually diluted the meaning of that word.
How so?
I think too many people think that purpose is something that they find in their career. The career brings it to them, instead of the opposite, which is I bring my purpose to my job, right? And so when I don't really know what purpose is and where it comes from, and you and I have talked about this, right? Mm-hmm. Purpose springs from identity. Mm-hmm. So if I know who I am, then I have a better chance of understanding why I'm here and what my purpose is. If I don't know who I am and I've just been X title, the husband of, right? The father to,
yes.
Right? And all of my identity is wrapped up in these external things I do instead of back into the heart of who I am, then purpose is going to be a hard thing to find.
Yeah, really difficult. And so what is I guess really, what's it matter in the end? I guess a question might be is to what end? If somebody doesn't find their purpose, what does life look like for them?
Like the first life I lived. It's just activity-based, performance-based, accumulation-based, right? Like, what can I get? What can I do? And you end up where I did in 1999, which was completely empty. Mm-hmm. And wondering, like, what is happening to me, because I have everything, but I feel like nothing.
Yeah, yeah. I find it interesting, too, and those things, and just a quick, I don't know if we need to include this in the recording, but I've been around 3 guys now that have are high-profile jobs. One was with ADM. You probably know Mark Whitaker, right? And he found this life. Thought his purpose was work, right? And getting as fast and as high as he could in the organization. He ends up in jail because he breaks the law. I was in Stamford, Connecticut at a New Canaan Society meeting and had a chance to meet a gentleman that went to jail for investor fraud. In Greenwich, that whole area up there in Connecticut, all the well-to-dos, and became a Christian before that, and so he's got a great ministry he's working with in Texas right now. And I got a friend I talked to last week that's a similar situation. He was seeking purpose in his job as shortcuts to get there, did some wrong things, ended up in the slammer for a little while. Those are extreme cases, right, where people thought that their purpose was in work and what they did at work, and then they said, okay, I'm not achieving what I need to be necessarily, or I want more, or they got greedy or whatever, and then that helps them, but they end up on a bad end of all that and still no purpose, right? So I think what's happened to a lot of these guys too is they get into jail and they sit and they have a chance to contemplate and think, read the Bible, and then they start to discover that purpose. Because I know the 3 guys that I have been engaged with, have been blessed to be around, they came out on fire for the Lord with purpose, but their purpose had changed into something not self-oriented, but God-oriented, something bigger than themselves. Is there some commonalities there? I know those are extreme cases, and I didn't mean to go off on a rabbit trail on that, but I just think it's important to realize that there's the normal person that struggles with purpose, but when you look at the extremes, that can show you what things lead to sometimes as well.
Yeah, and without going into details, I know several people like that too.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
But I also know people that never really made a lot of money, but fell victim to loneliness when COVID hit and haven't been able to come out of it.
Yeah.
But as you were speaking, you just gave me a word kind of play, right?
Yeah.
There's loneliness and there's isolation.
Yes.
And isolation used with purpose in jail, a lot of time to reflect, a lot of time to decide, like, okay, who am I really?
Right.
What am I doing here? And what am I going to do when I get out?
Right.
That isolation can actually work to someone's benefit.
Yeah, sure.
It's got to have purpose to it.
Yeah. On the other side is loneliness, where we're totally isolated, where no man is an island. It's John Donne, right?
Yeah, you're choosing to be alone, right? You're choosing to be alone because you're feeling lost, you're feeling depressed. You isolate because you just can't handle being around people.
Yeah.
Versus isolating because you're trying to figure out how you're going to handle people.
Yeah, that's right. So good. We could just sit here and write an article or a book by everything you're sharing. What great wisdom. Hey, let's move into something fun. We've got many things in common, but one of them is that you used to work for the Coca-Cola company. I'd love to know a couple things. What's your favorite brand? And then 2, tell me what your favorite Coke story is.
Yeah. Favorite brand's easy. It's the 6-ounce original bottle Coke, right?
Wow.
Classic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I don't know if you knew this. I have a 1949 Vendo Coke machine in my office.
You mentioned that to me. Where do you get parts for that thing?
Right now, it still runs, which is
Does
amazing.
it really?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I can plug it in and it works.
Yeah, that's great.
As a matter of fact, I just found the key that was keeping the little change box, where you take the change out of it. Yeah. I found the key after owning it for 20 years, moving it in our North Carolina home.
Okay.
Heard something slip and fall, and I thought I had broken something.
Wow.
And I saw the little tip of a silver key. So I now have the key to it.
Oh, I love it. Did you find any money when you opened it up?
No money. Lots of old bottle caps, though.
Okay.
With that odor to them, that old bottle cap odor.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the favorite story is they had a program there, you may remember, called Spark, Experience the Power of the Team. And it was run by a guy by the name of Walt Ganser. And they blindfolded us in the atrium. They put us into a van. Well, they put us in the van, then they blindfolded us so that we wouldn't know where they were taking us. But we ended up in the woods, and then they put us in this little room, and there was an envelope on the table and it said, "Do not open." And so, you've got executive leaders all the way down to nobodies like me. I was a first-year staff auditor.
Right.
And, people are just kind of talking. It's like, what are we doing in here? What's going to be next? And I'm just like, I know it says not to open it, but like, what if opening it actually told us what we're supposed to do next? And so after a lot of debate, we decided to open it, and it's got instructions of where to go to get your room and everything.
Really?
Else.
Did it really?
Yeah, it did.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So, and I was one of the ones pushing to open it.
Okay.
I was just like, okay.
Interesting team dynamic, right?
Yeah.
The debate that went on.
Yeah, it was neat. So the next day we're doing ropes courses and trust falls and, blindfolded walking, all the things you would expect if you're trying to build team and trust. And Walt Ganser comes up to me and says, "Hey, you want to take a walk with me?" I said, "I do." He goes, "Do you remember the assessment we took, earlier in the day?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Would you like to hear a little bit about you?" I'm like, "I would love to." He goes, "Did you know that you have a propensity to teach and to encourage and to coach?" So this was the beginning of, right?
Yeah.
Me starting to realize that there was something more there.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, he basically said, "You're not really built to be a finance and audit guy.
Yeah.
You should be out there with people, maybe in sales, maybe in human resources, customer service." And that set up the rest of my career. From that day forward, I was trying to figure out where I fit, and God was good. I got a call from the guy who recruited me off of Penn State's campus about 6 months later, and I went back to be the recruiting director at Deloitte. And
Okay.
Outside job, meeting faculty, interviewing students, always on the go, playing golf with people.
Right.
It was a complete change in my career and my life.
That's awesome. It's the irony to me because you go into Spark thinking something for team, and then you have this conversation and a walk in the woods that is actually a spark for you or a catalyst for what you were going to do next in your life. So that's powerful.
And knowing what I know now, real briefly,
Yeah.
until you have that, this is Stephen Covey says this, right? Until you have the private victory, it's very difficult to have the public victory.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to spark who you are before you can, ignite other people's flames.
Absolutely. I guess my phrase is you have to have that form before function, right? The being before doing. It's the same kind of concept, right?
Love being before doing. Yeah.
So good. You don't like form before function?
I like form before function, but being before doing is better.
Love it. Hey, let's move into sandwiches. You want to talk sandwiches for a second?
I love sandwiches.
All right. You've spoken about the Panini maker generation and the pressure many people face in balancing their responsibilities. How do you help them stay true to their purpose while navigating the challenges? So tell me about this Panini maker generation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we might want to define
Yeah.
that.
Tell me a little bit
people
about that.
People are getting hungry right now, right?
Yep.
That's what people are calling the sandwich generation, right?
Okay.
So, we're at that age where we've got parents that we're caring for. We still may have kids at home, and we're caring for them.
Right.
And so that's where I find myself. I've got an 89 and 85-year-old mom and dad that are living with us, with Debbie and I. Just moved in February. We also still have Courtney living there. Katie's away at school, but 2 of our 5 still live at home. And we have 2 grandkids, 8 and 6.
So you're sandwiched.
Yes, I got 4 generations living in my home.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's different than people are used to, over the last couple of decades. So, but it's a beautiful thing. So if you don't have purpose, that would be very hard to navigate. If you have purpose, like, how do I give my parents the best life they can have while I'm doing the same thing for my kids and my grandkids? So purpose ends up 360 degrees, covering all generations. I'm the same person doing the same thing. It's just how I do it with them is a little different than how I do it with my grandkids.
Yeah, so true. So if you didn't have purpose in that situation, right, then it seems like that you may be thinking, what does all this matter? Why am I doing all this? It becomes more of an inconvenience, maybe, as you do that. You're stuck in between.
The old Joe would have just thrown himself into more travel to try to make more money, to buy more stuff and create more things and save up in case my parents needed to go into a home.
Okay.
Right? I would have gone into churn and burn and make more.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Versus, I need to be home as much as I possibly can be, because Debbie can't do this on her own.
Yeah. Good. So good. So thank you for clarifying the Panini maker generation. Good stuff. I love your phraseology.
It's the Italian version of the sandwich
It's the
generation.
Italian, right? I love it. Hey, let's move into a little bit about faith and leadership. How does faith influence your leadership philosophy? And then how do you integrate it into your coaching practice?
It's the foundation. So there's nothing that I teach or coach to or do that isn't built in the truth. And I'll just give you an example. Proverbs 27:23. Know the condition of your flock. Pay careful attention to your herd. Followed by Proverbs 3:27 that says, do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to act. That's leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership is I need to know what's happening with the people around me, and then I need to do whatever I can to put them in the best position to deliver on their role.
That's so good. You know, it's interesting. There's so many leadership books out there. Some are faith-based, others aren't. Are there some natural laws that you would consider that everybody can benefit from that you talk about?
Well, I'm stealing this from Aslan Training, right, which is the sales training that I deliver, and it's other-centered.
Yeah.
Be other-centered. Like,
Right.
make the other person the priority.
Right.
Try to take as much pressure off of them as you can and watch them flourish.
Yeah. Yeah. It's universal, right? If we focus on other people to help them versus focusing self to let me get what I want, my ambitions, my career, my job, my prestige. If we focus on others, there's a great return, not only for them, but then ultimately for us. But I'm not in it for me because I'm not trying to reverse and manipulate, right? It's the why behind all of that, right?
Yeah, and when you give, you receive.
Yeah.
Well, but if I give to receive,
Yeah.
my motive's off.
Yeah,
But if I'm
absolutely.
truly giving of everything I have to you so you can have your best life, I'll receive in ways I could never imagine or measure.
Yeah, it's so important. I recently wrote about this in my new book, How It's Greater Than What, and we'll talk about how it's greater than what in just a second. But I was talking about employee engagement, and you don't build an environment for people to engage emotionally at work, give their discretionary effort, go the extra mile to manipulate them, right? You want them to come to grow, bringing their best self to work, and that plays across the board, whether you're a person of faith or not, right? People are inspired to work with a great leader in a great environment. But it's not because you're manipulating them to get to a result. It's because you care about them first and foremost and what they're going to do and how they're treated.
I love that. So who comes to mind when I say, who's the first leader that saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself?
Oh, gosh. So many people from youth groups at a very young age to a guy named Rick at Hershey, was a couple levels above me. He believed in me. So there's a number of people through my career that believed in me, called something out in me that made a difference and helped me believe in myself that I could do something. So yeah, it makes a big difference to have people like that in your life.
So if Rick at Hershey called you up today and said, hey, I'm putting together this thing to do that, what would you do?
Go work with him in a heartbeat, right?
Exactly.
I'd want to join in.
Yeah, because he was for you.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't work for him. He was working for you. And when somebody's for you, there's almost no end you won't go to try to advance the mission and the vision.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. I love it. So you want to lean in with them. You would even do it 20 years later if they called, right? Put the band back together.
If Doug Buse called me today, who's the guy who ran the training program so I could, come to know my purpose, my identity and purpose, whatever he wants to do, I'm doing it.
Yeah, I love it.
Because he draws the best out of me. And when he does that, I better serve the people around me.
So what would your advice to millennials be on that? Think about that for a second. I think there's a great lesson that this next generation needs to hear about somebody believing in them and having somebody call something great out of them. What difference would that make for them? Why is that important?
Can I flip it a little bit? I'm almost feeling like they need to figure out who they're going to do that for.
Sure.
Right? Versus looking around like who's going to draw the best out of me or see the best in me. Maybe start trying to see the best in other people, and that might actually give you the lens to see the best in yourself.
That's so good. That's so good. I've got this, and I'll share it with you later if you'd like to see it, this belief pyramid. And it talks about that you have to have first and foremost a foundation of belief in God. And then you have to talk about how you have a belief in yourself. Others believe in you. It escalates, then ultimately believing in something bigger than yourself. But that whole belief piece, right? It's that internal piece, and then how do I help somebody else? And I think it's important that we grasp that belief in self early on in order for us to translate that into how do you mentor somebody, how do you believe in them and do that.
Yeah. And by the way, I didn't mean to say I wouldn't look around to see, is there someone who believes in me more than I believe in myself, and then get close to them and ask them what they see in me.
Yeah.
Like, there's benefit to all that.
Sure.
But there's something about making that shift from, okay, the world's not here to serve me.
That's good.
I'm going to go out there and try to just find a couple of people in my sphere of influence that seem a little down, seem a little off, seem a little stuck.
Yep.
And I'm going to try to help them.
So good.
And when I'm doing that, I'm going to start to find the parts of me that add the most value to other people. Mm-hmm. And suddenly my sense of mattering and my momentum, like everything's just going to pick up. And that's what I learned in the shift from selfish Joe to, purpose-driven Joe.
Okay. I love it. Let's move on real quick to this how is greater than what philosophy. So we've talked, I've got this philosophy that how you do something is more important than what you actually achieve. Results are table stakes. They keep you in the game, right? So you've got to deliver those at work. But how has that guided you in terms of your approach at all? Does it resonate with you and your thoughts around that?
Totally resonates with me, and I was so excited to see you writing about it.
Oh, well, thank you.
And you didn't know that I was writing at the same time, right? Yeah. Similar thought is just, when I focus on who I need to become, then I'm going to get all the outcomes I seek. If I get busy chasing after a whole bunch of outcomes, it's time away from trying to focus on who I'm supposed to become. So which one comes first, right? And I definitely think that the how comes before the what. So how do I best serve other people? How do I become a better husband? How do I become a better father? And by focusing on that, I become a leader worth following. And when I become a leader worth following, then I can lead other people to more outcomes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
So good. So you referenced the book. Tell us a little bit about the book that you brought with you.
Yeah. So the book, Inside Out, Upside Down, right? A journey to discover who you were made to become, right? It's based on identity, purpose, and values. It's why don't we shift and flip inside out, upside down the way we're going about education? We're stockpiling. Here's social studies. Here's science. Here's math, right? You got to take algebra before you take calc. And we're just piling skills and knowledge on top of an unstable foundation. And so this is a book that's a cry for help to, hey, parents, if you're wondering why give up-itis, which is my nice term for suicide, why it's escalating, it's because we're putting so much pressure on this generation to get into this, to get onto that, to get off with this. Like we're literally just driving them crazy. We're so performance-based because our parents were performance-based, and we're just cascading that down to this generation, and we're overwhelming them with it.
Yeah, it seems that the contribution in careers is the main focus, less so about character, right? Building and early on. And when I think about that, and you go, because you only have to study the past to understand the future, right? And those who don't study the past are condemned to repeat the future or repeat it again. That's one thing we've got to get back to, Joe. We've got to figure out how do we instill character, not just the competence that are out there, but how do we, these values that are so important, and where do they start to do that instead of focused on their contribution, their careers and things as they get out? Because that's a path that ends in destruction, basically.
Yeah. And earlier you were asking, are there principles, right, truths that are transferable from my faith into my career? And one of them is that you either build on a stable foundation or you build on an unstable foundation. Right. You're either on rock or you're on sand, and you can't straddle. And so when one really understands their true identity, their purpose, and their values, they are less likely to be influenced by those around them, the culture, the situation, the circumstances, and they're more likely to be able to lead, from a position of truth and power and stability. And so you're right. I'm collaborating with, and I won't mention the university, but I'm collaborating with a dean at a university who is over behavioral sciences and humanities. And we're talking about building a course called The Foundations of Humanity. What are they? Yeah. And I'll give you a quick example. Who's teaching people how to become a good friend? Did you get that in middle school?
No.
How about high school?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean,
nobody told anybody, like, if you want to become a good friend, here's certain things you're going to need to do. Right? And so I just think we need to, character is a good word for it, but there's these foundations that they're just not being taught because we're so busy preparing people to get on to the next level, to get to the next promotion, to get to their 401k, to retire at 65.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the path is an interesting one that's laid out for us without those things, the foundation on it. Yeah, I'd love to, offline, we'll talk more about that because I think that's so important because we've got to figure out how to start upstream, To my point, right? You've got to get that's a
Totally.
that's a Desmond Tutu. I'll get you the quote on it, but there's a
I have
quote
it.
about do you? Yeah,
There comes a time
Yep, right. And
when we have to stop just pulling people out of the river.
Yep.
We need to go upstream and figure out why they're falling in. And they're falling in because they have no idea what their identity, purpose, and values are. And the people downstream, they basically are relying on something that's unreliable. And it's called behavioral observation. By the time you can see somebody having troubling changes in their behavior, self-talk's already, the baseline of their foundation is already off. Their self-talk is way off. They're making decisions you don't see, behaviors you don't see, and you finally see some. So you're 5 steps downstream by the time you start pulling somebody out.
Yeah. So the question is, how do we swim back upstream and change things up there? So hats off to you on that. Hey, let's wrap up. I want to talk real quick about just a takeaway for leaders today. For leaders tuning in today, hopefully our millennial friends and Gen Zers, what's one piece of advice that you would give them on how they can find and live out their purpose more fully in their work and in life?
I'm going to go back to Coke.
Okay.
Do you remember the slogan from like 1929 to 1950?
I wrote it myself. No, I'm kidding. I don't. What is it?
The pause.
That refreshes.
The pause that refreshes.
Yes.
Take a pause that refreshes. Step out for a week, step out for a month, like step out for whatever you can financially afford. And don't go back in until you know who you are and why you're here and you have that clarity of purpose.
So good. We don't do enough reflective thinking. And the other part of that is that hopefully as we do that reflective thinking, we have something to guide us along. And I'm sure a lot of the resources that you have will help people do that. So
there's a process, right, that you can go through. But the bottom line is, in addition to the pause that refreshes, go back and figure out who you are and why you're here. The second thing I would say, and we've been talking about it, is change the scoreboard. So start tracking, become over outcome. And when you track become and you take the pause that refreshes over outcome, when you come back, you'll be amazed at your productivity. You'll be amazed at the influence. And again, this isn't about me, but I get random messages in LinkedIn of people from all around the world that I don't even know. Who just see the stuff that I'm posting and say, I'm lost, I'm stuck. I know you have a lot going on, but is there any way? And it's like, there's absolutely a way. Here's my mobile number. And here's the crazy part. Anybody could be asking me to lead them to purpose. And I get 3 or 4 a month. So what are the other hundreds of thousands of people doing? Sure.
They're the ones that reach out, but there's probably 100 plus that for every one that come in that are struggling with the same thing, right? It reminds me of a former president of Coca-Cola North America. I remember somebody asking him at a big town hall meeting, said, our stock price is not performing like it needs to. And he looked at the crowd and he said, if we execute these strategies well, the stock price will take care of itself. And I always think about that if we take care of the formation, the being, before the doing, if we do this right here, then the results, the outcomes, how you phrase it, they will come. They will take care of themselves.
Yeah, and that's our real connecting point between you and I. That's why I wanted to drive down here and be with you in person.
Thank you.
And do that. This has been fantastic, right? But the being versus the doing, that's working from the inside out.
That's right.
When we work from the inside out, we change the world's view of success, work, values, right? Everything changes.
Right. Makes a big, big difference. Really good. Anything else on your heart and mind before we close out? I'm going to ask you some hot seat questions in just a second.
I was driving down here thinking that the moment I can't wait to get to is the hot seat question. So
really?
let's
You're ready to roll and ready to go. You've not seen these questions yet,
have not seen these
you're
questions.
Ready to go?
I like it. I like the adrenaline. It's already starting to flow
you feel
in
the
my
energy.
body.
Here we go.
Sitting up a little straighter.
Joe, you ready? All right. These aren't tough. If you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be?
Empathy.
Tell me more. Why?
I think that's what I was lacking in my earlier life to now. I still have a lot of way to go in that. But I think if we had more empathy, we'd have more unity. We would have more people encouraged. We'd have less people discouraged and being hopeless and thinking about taking their lives.
Yeah, empathy is one of the key. So John Meacham is a famous author. I don't know if you know John Meacham, but he said that one of the 3 key leadership characteristics that are needed in the future is empathy. And if we can figure out how to stand in other people's shoes and appreciate them and connect with them, that'll make a big difference. So
without judging them, without being biased.
Right. Yeah. Empathy is so important. Okay, what's the weirdest food that you've ever tried, and did you like it?
Rocky Mountain oysters, and I don't know if you want me to go into
you're
that.
Confessing that? Tell what where were you when that happened?
Colorado with Deloitte in my
Okay.
early years as a staff auditor, and I'm just that guy that looks at the menu and like, what is that, right?
Yeah.
So we had rattlesnake, frog legs, and Rocky Mountain oysters that night, and I actually kind of liked all of them.
Did you? Yeah. Interesting. I was at I made a big deal about saying I'm not going to eat Rocky Mountain oysters, and I was with a Coke event dinner. They have a couple beers around the table and stuff, and so they bring things to the table. I'm not really paying attention, and they all pulled one over on me, and I ate like a quarter of a Rocky Mountain oyster. I was like, oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So yes, I would agree with you. Very interesting experience. Okay, good. Let's see. If you had a choice between giving up coffee or giving up your smartphone, what would it be?
Well, the good news for me is that's not a choice.
Okay.
So one of the gifts that I give to the world every day is that this guy does not drink caffeine.
Wow.
So I've never had coffee.
Really?
Yeah,
Never.
I've had like at a dinner to be nice when they served it. I've like put a lot of sugar in it and taken a couple sips, but love the way it smells. Love coffee ice cream.
Yeah.
I do not drink coffee.
So Coke has caffeine in it, right? So did you drink that?
When I was at Coke, I drank caffeine while I was at Coke.
Yeah.
But that was
Not to put you on the spot, Joe.
no,
but
but that was
curious.
1990, 1991.
Yeah, you've given it up since
So
then.
I've pretty much been a soda-free guy for the last 20 years.
I cannot imagine being caffeine free. I have like 3 cups of coffee a day. So.
Well, let me explain. The last name Colavito has meaning.
Okay.
It means full of life.
Oh.
So I wake up just like I am right now.
That's awesome.
3 a.m. If I wake up, it's like, hey, here we go.
You are the embodiment of caffeine. I love it. Full of life.
Yeah.
Very good. We could name a coffee brand after you, as a matter of fact, or an energy drink. That'd be good. All right. What's one movie that you'd watch over and over again without being bored from it?
Give me a second to reflect on it. That's a good one. Facing the Giants. You ever seen it?
I have. Tell me more. Why?
There's a scene in Facing the Giants, and I think the center's name is Brock, and or the big defender's name is Brock, strongest guy on the team. And they put another guy on his back, and they blindfold him, and they make him do this like army crawl. And he asks why he has to have the blindfold on. He says, because I don't want you giving up until you've given me your very best. And then the coach is just walking alongside him going, come on, keep going. One more step, right?
Yeah.
I can't, I'm tired. You negotiate with your body, right? And you keep going, right? And that is really the epicenter of how I view life, right? I just want everybody to just keep going. Like whatever the best is that you have coming from where it comes from, give it. Do it, right?
Yeah.
That way you can look back with no regret, regardless of where you collapse. And he collapses in the end zone, which obviously makes the movie a little bit better.
Yeah, the drama behind it. It's a great scene. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. It's funny. I've taken that clip and played it in private venues. And so hopefully I don't get in trouble for this. But we did sales rallies at the Coca-Cola company. And so either for the engagement teams that I led or for sales rallies when we go out and charge up the troops, go out and execute the next brand or things we're doing, I've played that clip for people before to inspire them. The reason I say that is because that's a universal truth, that perseverance. Everybody, regardless if they are faithful or not, they could connect with that message to keep going. You don't know what you can achieve. If you don't believe in yourself, you got somebody else that believes in you as well. The guy crossed the finish line, right? He didn't think he was going to get there.
Yeah. Could I quickly build on that?
Yeah, please.
So Hebrews chapter 11, verse 8, Abraham was credited because he kept going despite not knowing.
Yeah.
Right. That is the verse that allowed me to move my family from Atlanta to Wake Forest, which is just north of Raleigh, in 2019. It was coupled with a chapter before that. It says, hold unswervingly to the hope that you have in Christ. So if you have hope anchored in, right, and you keep going despite not knowing, you end up in places that you could have never imagined being, and they're always better.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the fear that would keep you from going when you don't know. The uncertainty holds you back.
Yeah, that's the perseverance. My dad, who is one of my heroes in my life, he's a pretty smart man. Got his PhD at Caltech and started an organization, defense company and stuff like that. But I asked Dad last year, I asked him a question. I said, Dad, what would you attribute your success to? Your talent, your skills, your abilities, or perseverance? Didn't even hesitate. He said, perseverance. That keeping going, keep moving, because you never know how close you are to success, right? People stop one step before they step over the goal line type thing. And so yeah, that message of perseverance, staying in there, that hope, and all those things is certainly a relevant message for us today.
I love that your dad passed that on to you.
Yeah. So thankful. I was shocked, actually, so wasn't that shocked, but it was just neat to hear it coming from him.
Yeah, it is.
Good. Well, good. Well, we've had, I think, a great thing. I want to ask you one last thing. This is purpose, and this is the last question for the hot seat. The hot seat has cooled off a little bit. That's okay. We haven't moved as fast as we thought we might. But this last one says, what's one thing that you do every day to stay grounded in your purpose? What do you do every day to stay grounded in your purpose?
I sit in the classroom of silence first every day. So
why do you call it the classroom of silence?
It's another one of these little word plays, right? So take the word listen and the word silent, and they're the same letters in a different order. And so God is always working, right? And he whispers in the silence beyond all thought. So I have to give him space to whisper, this is what I want you to focus on today. This person I just put on your heart, right? But I spend a lot of time in his word with my journal open and just capturing whatever he wants me to know that day to get myself back in that place where I think I've become a leader worth following. And then I go out and I mess up, by noon, and then I go back, and then I mess up by 5 and I go back, right? But I stay grounded in, am I truly living out the word that I've read this morning?
That's so good. Joe, such great wisdom, humble wisdom. Thank you for bringing it today. And I think what you shared today in terms of purpose, finding your purpose, what it looks like when you don't have it, when you do have it, the power of the thought process and the words we talk to ourselves, the negative talk and positive talk, all those things are so relevant to today's next generation, if you will, that's coming up, and leaders, the emerging leaders. So thanks for your time today. Appreciate that. Thanks for joining today on P Cubed. If you enjoyed our conversation, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube so you don't miss any future episodes. And if this episode inspired you, share with a friend or colleague. For more insights, leadership insights, you can sign up for my weekly email, The Pulse. The registration link, along with the links to Joe's content, can be found in the show notes. And don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram for more updates and inspiration. Thanks for listening. Take care and talk soon.